Thank you for joining me for another quick hits conversation. I'm Dr. Robyn. With me today, I have Andrew Infantino, Diane Helbig, and Simon Coles. And I would like to talk about how do you set a bar at a certain height and then not feel bad or guilty about those who can't reach it. Simon, can you kick us off, please?
So I guess this is my story of kind of like personal growth, because when I first started running a company, I felt that you should give everybody a chance. And I kept giving people chances, and turned out it didn't make anybody happy and cost me a lot of money. And now I've kind of got to the stage of, well, actually, as long as I treat people decently and give them a fair chance, and then tell them the situation, that is the fairest and nicest thing to do. And whilst they may not have a future within our company, you look them up a few months later and they're happily ensconced somewhere else.
I think the question is very interesting. I see it from both a professional and personal standpoint. Professional standpoint, especially obviously in a team environment, leadership, it encompasses not only the individual success, but the success of a team. And so I think that saying you're only as strong as your weakest link is important. And so in terms of succeeding as a team, it's important that all of the team members contribute and obviously are led and supported. And so it's attaining high goals and maintaining and shooting for large goals is crucial, especially in a professional environment. But then a leader needs to not only have that vision for those large goals, but make sure that each of their team members are supporting it accordingly. And so, I think as Simon mentioned, if changes do need to be made eventually, obviously because of team members not contributing to the overall goal, I think that's normal and that needs to be done.
I think when we get into this emotional headspace around feeling bad for someone who can't quite make the mark, there's the really strong potential that they're just in the wrong place, like they're in the wrong seat on the bus, right? So like when Simon said he runs into people and they're perfectly happy and they're less stressed, I see it happen all the time. It's just not the right place for them. So we're not doing them any favors by having expectations of them they're not going to be able to reach, right? And it's not gonna, the team's not gonna succeed. It's not gonna do anybody any good. So that, I think if we take the emotion out of it, it tends to work better.
Oh yeah, I love that point about taking the emotion out of it, and that people can be successful in other places, and that it's failure is part of success, and that allowing someone to not reach a bar lets them go reach a different one. The one thing that we haven't talked about or wasn't mentioned yet is that, setting prices. As an entrepreneur, you have to set a price, and if somebody can't reach that, do you feel guilty about the fact that you've set a price that someone can't reach?
Set a price? What do you mean by set a price? To my English?
Well, so in plain English.
Well, to my English, it doesn't quite resonate for me.
Well, so if you have a price, say for Simon, you have a software price.
Yeah.
And someone really wants it, and they're a great organization, and you resonate with what they do, but they can't meet that price. Do you feel guilty? Do you give them a discount? Or do you say, well, this is the price, this is what it cost me to create this software?
Pricing's I think we have historically, we have a price list that's proven over time. And we might look for reasons to discount if somebody wanted to discount, like commit for 3 years or something. If I was a sort of one-to-one advisor or something, and I've got somebody who's going, oh, I'd love to work with you, but I can't afford your rate. I don't know what I'd do. What do you do?
Go ahead, Diane.
Yeah. So when we're doing discovery with a potential client, this is my opinion, that when we're doing discovery with a potential client, budget is a part of that discovery process, because all the pieces have to fit. And if that's a piece that doesn't fit, then they are not the right client for us. They're right for somebody, they're just not right for us. And so discounting, what I find is that it ends up in a spiral where then we can actually convince ourselves that the value of what we are providing is less than what we thought the value was. So, we end up, it just hurts everybody because that's not the way it should be. So we're letting someone else drive the value of our product or service.
Which has nothing to do with value. It has to do with their budget, which is a different thing. Yeah, I hear that.
Exactly.
Andrew, what are your thoughts on this?
I interpreted the question more from a management standpoint. So in terms of the price being consequences, if certain team members, for example, can't reach the goal, or let's say sales quota, et cetera. And I think that's normal. I think there have to be certain consequences per se, and whether or not the severity of these consequences could be varied. If a particular team member we spoke about culture, and so I think culture is incredibly important. If they do fit very well within a culture, and we want to help shape them and help them grow, so that these failures or these issues don't occur in the future, then I think it makes sense to invest in that team member to help them grow and see them overcome and not have to face consequences. But at the end of the day, if we have these goals and a particular member of our team isn't hitting them and they don't fit the culture, then we have to make a rational decision and make a change.
And I think that brings up the big problem I have is, how long do you give them? If they were performing and all of a sudden they performance kicks off, or whether they join you and don't quite meet. And that is again a real quandary. But for me, that's where you're sort of talking to the individual and forming a view of which way this is going and do they care. And the hardest thing is where you get somebody who does care, but it's clearly not going to meet the bar. That way you kind of feel like you're shooting a puppy. But then again, I don't know if that translates to American. Well,
no, it does. It translates really well, actually.
But I think that's where you have to just remind yourself of how often you've seen this situation and it's turned out okay with them afterwards. And to some extent, then you're looking for an exit plan that doesn't damage their confidence too much. The trickier ones are where it's not quite bad enough, and there is a little bit of hope. That's really difficult.
It's so interesting. I totally get that whole quandary. And one of the things that I notice I do a lot of leadership training. And one of the things that I notice is that leaders have a tendency to try to solve the problem for the other person instead of inviting the other person to explore solutions and, to say, help me understand your mindset, help me understand your thought process, tell me what is going on with you, and then being quiet, because we're problem solvers naturally as leaders. We just want everything to fit, and we think we're supposed to do that. But they will come to the right conclusion and the right place if we're having a really good dialogue about it. And we have, and it's uncomfortable at first, but the more they're contributing to that conversation, what I find is they will, a lot of times they will say, this just isn't right for me. This just, I'm not syncing with it. I'm uncomfortable. I'm worried that I'm screwing something up, whatever it is. And then if they fit the culture, it's the conversation around, okay, is there something else around here that you've noticed that you would be comfortable doing? Or can we work on that? Or is it just that we need to help you find that thing that is really where you should be?
Invite them to find greener pastures somewhere else. Yeah. And I think to Simon's point that it makes sense to have those conversations with someone who's really engaged and who wants to do a good job. But if you end up with someone on your team who doesn't show up and do the work, you have to at some point just say you're not meeting the bar, and you can't feel guilty about that because it is your business.
You have to be a little bit careful that in Europe we have much different employment laws. I do look at the US, and it's interesting how this is even allowed, but employment at will. Whoa. But one thing I resisted for a long time, having external HR help. And actually I got some external HR people, and they've been really good because they have seen this hundreds, if not thousands of times. And they can tell me, they can sort of bolster me up a little bit, and they can also give the other person, and they can sort of mediate a constructive conversation, which I could probably do on my own, but it's much easier to have them involved.
Yeah.
And safer from a legal perspective.
Well, that is our 10 minutes, so I'm going to have to cut us off there. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to doing it again with you all soon.